Welcome to our first business class. Now, the grade 9 business is basically a congregate class, which one term you will be doing one business subject and another term you will be doing another business subject. In this term, we'll be doing principle of business. And we're going to touch on the basics of what business really is. And in today's lesson, we're going to start off of various terms. For example, what is a business? We're going to define what is a business, and we're going to define what is barter. And to help me define what is business, I will bring in a help from Mr. Latchman, and he's going to help me to define what a business really is. So over to Mr. Latchman. Do pay attention to what he's saying and enjoy. Hey, my name is Mr. Latchman. Your business teacher, Sir Dion, asked me to come and to talk to you about business today. So let's get into what we're going to talk about today. Do you know or have any idea what a business is? Do you know anyone who has a business? Or do you know how a business operates? I will show you all a video now. And I want you all to pay keen attention to what a business is. You should make little mental notes on what you personally think a business is.
Concept of a business. So when we first talk about a business, we're really talking about any organization that sells goods and services. I should say goods or services. In an attempt to earn what we call profit. Now, we're going to unpack this definition here. When we talk about business, this is really what we're referring to. This is really the core, is any organization that sells goods or services in an attempt to earn profit. So you'll notice that by definition, this encompasses a wide array of organizations, but also precludes some others. So first, let's look at kind of some of the delineating factors here. So the first thing we're going to look at is this concept of a good or a service. So in order to be a business by definition, the organization has to be able to sell something. So offer for sale a good or a service. Now, goods typically, both of these I might add, we generally refer to them as what we call products. So a good being a tangible product, something that has a form, shape, like a book, for example. A service being something that is intangible. It can't be held. It doesn't have a specific form. It's often produced and consumed at the same time. So a great example of this would be if you were to go in and you were to get a haircut. Obviously not during COVID, of course, unless you're outside. But in normal times, you go into a barbershop or you go into a salon and you pay for the service, and it's both produced and it's consumed at the same time. It can't be stored for later. So those are a few characteristics that would separate goods or services. Now, ultimately, it doesn't matter which one the business provides, only if it provides one or the other. And many times, many businesses provide something that's kind of a hybrid or combination of the two. So think about a restaurant setting, for example. A restaurant, of course, there is both a good and a service. The good being the food that you're provided and end up consuming, and then obviously the service by the waiter or waitress who takes your order and brings you your food and all those other sorts of things. So it's very rare that there's a pure good or a pure service. Oftentimes we have hybrids of the two. Now notice by definition, this actually eliminates what we would call a nonprofit from consideration as a business, because nonprofits typically don't sell goods or services. Their primary function is, of course, tackling a social issue of some kind, typically funded through donations and other sorts of funding mechanisms. And as a result, they're not selling goods and services predominantly, although that could come up. That really isn't their core function to sell a good or a service. Now, the second part of that is this idea of earning what we call profit. And this is a very important element. So these two conditions have to be met for us to have essentially what we would call a for-profit business, or just a business for short. And that's the idea of earning profit. Now, notice this says attempt.
Now that you've seen what the video on what a business is, what do you think a business really is? Yes, that's correct. A business is like owning an organization, a company, or even a place, and you're doing something to make profit. What are you doing? You're selling a good or you're providing a service so that you can make a profit. That's very good. A business enterprise is an organization or entity that sells goods or services for a profit. Now you know what a business is. I will hand you back over to Sir Dion. Bye for now, kids. Thank you, Mr. Latchman, for that explanation on what a business really is. I hope that you guys paid attention to Mr. Latchman because he did make some good points in the video that he showed. And basically, a business is an organization that makes a profit, that produces a goods or service so that it could make a profit. Now we're going to look at the term barter. Do any one of you know what really is barter? Well, barter is the exchange of goods and services without the use of money. So, for example, someone may be exchanging their food produce, for example, the cassava, the edo, the yam, or they might do some carpentry work without the use of money. And why you say they might want to exchange goods and services without getting any money back in exchange? Well, they are exchanging it for other goods and services that they don't have. For instance, let's say one person is planting cassava and another person is skilled in building house. And someone could say, okay, I would like you to help me build my house, give me a day work or a week work, and I will give you 50 bags of cassava or plantain. And that is what barter is. You're exchanging goods and services for another good or service without the use of money. So let me go over again. Barter is exchanging goods and services for other goods and services that somebody may want without the use of money. So let me just go about a brief history of how barter really developed. A brief history of how the barter system did came about. So basically, in early days, just after the cavemans, when human society money wasn't developed yet, human society haven't developed the system of using money, they had a system in place where they exchange goods and services for other goods and services, and it's called barter. Now, people had to survive somehow, and basically they used to hunt for food. And then as human society developed, they started to learn about agriculture. And when they learn about agriculture, they learn about how to plant and when to plant. So some person dedicated their skills towards hunting, and some person dedicated their skills towards agriculture. Now, some person, they got fed up, like say, okay, they were planting cassava and edo all the time, and they got fed up of eating cassava and planting or edo all the time, plant products. And then the person who were hunting, they got fed up of eating meats and fish all the time. They wanted some provisions and some vegetables, and the person who were planting, they wanted some meat. So they decided, one day someone decided that maybe I will give you half a deer or some fishes for some of your provisions, and they agreed upon that. So it was an exchange of goods and services. There was an exchange of goods there without any money, because the money system wasn't developed there as yet. And in some cases, person dedicated their self towards learning a skill or doing some kind of skilled work, for example carpentry, or they were dedicated themselves towards being healers. while some person dedicated themselves towards hunting and farming. So when the farmer or the hunter needed a building to be built, or someone got sick in their family and they needed a healer to heal them, they would go and barter with the healer or the carpenter to exchange their service for some of their goods. For example, the deer or the wild hog or some of the plantain cassava, for them to do them this service to them, provide their service to them. So barter doesn't mean you have to exchange goods alone for goods. It could be exchanging service for a good for a service, a good for a good, or a service for a service. Now this brings us to the end of today's lesson. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and have learned something. Please do your own reading, your own research. There's a lot of materials on the net about the barter system and about business. Please do your own research, and I'll stay safe, and I will see you in the next class.